Imagine boarding a plane, ready to return home after a relaxing vacation. As the flight takes off, everything feels routine until the plane is suddenly engulfed in turbulence. The cabin shakes violently, fear grips you, and you can't help but wonder, is this the end? Just as suddenly, the turbulence ceases and relief washes over you. You land, expecting to step back into the life you left behind. Instead, you're met with an impossible truth. You've been missing for 5 years. No one can explain where you've been or how you returned. Was this a miracle or something far more unsettling? Manifest builds on this extraordinary premise, diving into a world where the boundaries of identity, morality, and reality blur. It's not just about the mystery of the passenger's disappearance, but the struggle to reclaim lives in a world that no longer fits them. How do you face mistrust and fear while confronting forces you don't fully understand? Today we delve into the gripping story of Flight 828 and the passengers' fight against time, fear, and their own humanity. What does it mean to prove your worth when judgment looms? Can unity survive when fear and betrayal threatens to tear it apart? If you're new here, make sure to hit the subscribe button and check out my other videos after this one. And now, without further ado, let's explore Manifest. Chapter 1. The Changes in Life. What does 5 years mean to you? 5 years in layman's terms might not seem like much, but in reality, a lot can happen during that time. For the passengers of Flight 828, 5 years meant an unimaginable ordeal, disappearing and returning to a world that thought they had perished. For those on the plane, the experience felt like mere hours, the duration of their flight. But for the rest of the world, 5 years had passed. Loved ones left behind faces the challenges of moving on. Children grew, some even becoming teenagers or adults, while others tragically passes away. This profound time gap becomes a backdrop for the passengers' return, shaping a story not just about the mysteries of their return or to figure out the mysterious callings they started to feel, but of reintegration into a world that had moved on without them. One striking example involves the twin passengers, separated by a 5-year gap. One twin has grown into a teenager, while the other remains a child, starkly highlighting the distance created by their return. Relationships are fractured, families are torn apart, and the notion of picking up where they have left off proves impossible. Jobs, homes, and lives have irreversibly changed, leaving the passengers adrift in a new reality. For many, this return is hailed as a miracle. Others, however, sees it with confusion, fear, or even resentment. The so-called miracle of coming back after 5 years is met with a sea of questions. For the passengers, it's a struggle to return to their past lives with a world that has long since moved forward. 5 years can pass in a blink of an eye, but its consequences can shape entire lifetimes. The passengers of Flight 828 are left to grapple with what losing 5 years truly means, not just to themselves, but to everyone they have left behind. Chapter 2. The Mysteries Behind the Callings. Ever since the passengers of Flight 828 landed, they have been haunted by psychic visions, dubbed the callings. At first, these callings seems to be a force for good, enabling the passengers to make significant impacts, rescuing 2 kidnapped girls, solving murders, and even reuniting loved ones. The majority of the passengers trusted the callings implicitly, believing that following them would eventually lead to answers. However, as time went on, the mysteries behind the callings becomes the central focus of their journey. What initially appeared to be helpful guidance began to transform into cryptic messages and ominous warnings. The most haunting of these was the revelation of their death date, a vision suggesting that all passengers would die 5 years after their return. Faced with this looming deadline, the passengers scrambled to decipher the true meanings of the callings and whether solving them was the key to preventing their fate. As they delved deeper, the callings' origin sparked divisive interpretations. Some individuals sought to exploit the callings for personal gains, while others viewed them as divine messages, weaving biblical meanings into their significance. And believing themselves to be chosen messengers of God, these individuals add a further layer of complexity to an already mysterious phenomenon. This mystery to understand the callings becomes the heart of the series, revealing their dual nature. On one hand, the callings could inspire passengers to contribute positively to the world. On the other hand, they carried haunting messages of impending destruction. With each new revelation, the journey to uncover the calling's true purpose took on a distinctly spiritual dimension. Ultimately, the series explored the ethical dilemmas posed by the callings. In the right hands, the callings could lead to redemption and survival of the death date. Yet selfishness, neglect, or misuse could cost passengers the second chance at life. This central enigma drove the narrative. How far were the passengers willing to go to solve a calling? Would they break the law, compromise their morality, and blindly follow something they didn't fully understand? What began as a mere mystery evolved into a profound ethical crisis. The passengers were faced with a stark choice: follow the callings and do what's right to survive, or risk everything by ignoring them. Chapter 3: Government plus the Unknown. When there is an element of the unknown involved, the government often takes center stage in their efforts to understand and investigate the phenomenon. This was evident when the passengers of Flight 828 returned after their mysterious 5-year disappearance. The government was the first to confront them, subjecting the passengers to rigorous interrogation in an effort to uncover the truth about their mysterious disappearance. Unlike other entities such as cults and hate groups that emerged in the response of the passengers' return, the government had limitless resources and immunity to cross ethical boundaries. From experimenting on the passengers, creating a registry, and even detaining them in internment camps, these measures become commonplace. The government's relentless pursuit to understand where the passengers had been and what had occurred to them led to questionable methods and practices. Although there were individuals within the government, like Vance, who managed to earn the trust of some of the passengers, the government as an entity was ultimately untrustworthy. Gruesome experiments were conducted in the name of understanding the passengers' mysterious callings, often ignoring valuable insights that the passengers were willing to share. The government prioritized on scientific reasoning over the possibilities of miracles, showing little regard for the passengers' well-beings. Globally, the same issue persisted. In countries like Singapore and China, similar experiments or even tribunals were conducted on passengers who were their own citizens, highlighting the worldwide trend of disregarding morality in the face of the unknown. When it comes to the unknown, chaos and moral dilemmas arises. The action of government officials raises a haunting question. Would you be willing to prioritize duty over morality, even at the cost of innocent lives? Chapter 4: Persecution created from fear. When humans encounter something they don't understand, it often sparks one or two reactions: a desire to learn and understand the unknown, or fear of it. This fear can sometimes escalate, driving people into violence or even radicalization. When the passengers of Flight 828 returned after being presumed missing for 5 years, their return triggered a wave of mixed emotions among the public. In response to their return, various groups began to form. Government task force was created, sought to uncover where the passengers had been, while cults emerged, venerating the passengers as a symbol of a second coming. Despite these different perspectives, fear becomes the dominant force, uniting much of the public. The passengers' return defied the laws of physics, raising deeply unsettling questions. This fear fueled the rise of hate groups, led by individuals ranging from criminals to respected scholars who used their position to spread hostility. The passengers were not only persecuted, but also subjected to violent attacks as the hate groups grew stronger, especially in New York City, where many of the passengers lived. Even the mysterious callings, often serving as warnings of future threats, did little to ease the passengers' anxieties, and despite their willingness to share and cooperate, they did little to calm public fears. Acceptance of the passengers proved to be one of society's greatest challenges. Even after the hate groups were dismantled, fear of the passengers persisted. Eventually, all passengers were placed in internment camps, not for their own safety, but because the public believed they were a danger. Amid the ongoing mysteries of the callings, the passengers continued to face the harsh reality of fear and persecution. Though many used their callings to help and protect others, they were met with constant suspicion and hostility, forcing them to choose a side: work for a system that is prosecutorial towards their fellow passengers, or protect the passengers and their lifeboat. Manifest reveals a chilling truth about human nature. When people are ruled by fear of the unknown, they will turn against what they cannot understand. Chapter 5: Trust among the passengers, friends or foe. With over 200 passengers on board Flight 828, each had their own reasons for being on that flight. Some switched flights to save money, receiving vouchers, while others shortened their trip due to personal reasons. A few were simply booked on the plane as part of their plans. Each passenger carried their own story, their lives leading them to the shared moment. Given the diverse background and motivation, the notion that every passenger would willfully work together is pure fiction. Among the group, there will inevitably be those who prioritize their own benefits over the collective survival, even as the ominous death date looms over them all. These black sheep disrupt the fragile balance, putting personal desires ahead of the group's unity. As the passengers begin receiving the callings, some believe these are divine messages. This leads a few to believe that they're messengers of God, their sense of righteousness blinding them to broader perspectives. This narrow interpretation often causes conflicts, further eroding the fragile trust among the passengers. Trust between the passengers is a delicate thread, easily broken by one character's selfish actions. These clashes lead to tragedies for some, yet those with pure heart remain united, working together to solve the callings. Their collective goodness becomes essential to ensure that the lifeboat they all share does not sink. The concept of the lifeboat underscores the passengers' need for unity. For everyone to survive, all must survive. It doesn't matter if most passengers are good, only a united front of goodness can succeed. However, maintaining that unity proves to be the greatest challenge. The growing mistrust, intensified by individual agendas and the influence of figures like Adrian, Egan, and Angelina, threatens to sink the lifeboat. Even those with good intentions like Ben find themselves compromising trust in their desperation to save the group, further straining relationships. Chapter 6: The Ending. The inevitable day of the passengers of Flight 828 arrives, the death date. This date, June 2nd, 2024, marks the moment when all surviving passengers reunite one final time to face judgment. Spending their fleeting precious moments together, they bid emotional goodbyes to their loved ones as they prepare to confront the unknown. Over the years, the passengers have followed countless callings, receiving guidance from the divine consciousness. These messages led them on a transformative journey, reuniting families, solving murders, and helping others, and themselves, rediscover the importance of family. Now the final trial is at hand, symbolized by the very flight that began it all. Boarding Flight 828 for the last time, the passengers brace themselves for judgment. As the passengers, including Angelina and her followers, takes their seat, judgment unfolds. One by one, they are assessed, and those deemed guilty face the grim fate they narrowly escaped when the flight originally vanished. 11 passengers are found unworthy and perishes, meeting the death they would have faced had the plane imploded. Yet for the rest, redemption is found, some even achieving it mid-flight. The survivors' fate takes a surreal turn. Those who passed judgment return to the exact moment when Flight 828 should have landed, April 7, 2013. Although they carry vivid memories of everything they endured, along with physical memorabilia from the experience, they re-enter a world where the events of the past 5 years never occurred. Deceased passengers return, getting their version of a second chance, tragedies erased, relationships like TJ and Olive's faded to distant memories, and children born during those years are no longer part of this reality. Despite these losses, the passengers find solace in the second chance to live anew with the profound wisdom they gained. Each survivor finds closure in their own way, reuniting with loved ones, including those lost when the flight first vanished. In this new reality, some characters are drawn together once again, proving that certain connections transcends time and space, that no matter the reality, they are meant to meet. It becomes a bittersweet journey of remembrance and restoration to a world where laughter, joy, and heartbreak from the past 5 years no longer exists. Now, as they face this new reality, the passengers must find peace in a life untouched by the extraordinary events they once lived in. Manifest ends with a bittersweet reminder of the profound wisdom gained through struggle and loss. The passengers of Flight 828 may have returned to a world untouched by the extraordinary, but the journey reminds us that redemption and connection are timeless. Thank you for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to leave a like, subscribe if you're new, and I'll see you soon in the next review episode.